I got 3 words for you. Kitty, missile, turrets. Well, actually, turret, since we're only one of us. You get the point.
Doing these awesome fucking pops. This is great.
Well, guys, are you guys excited for HEIST? Is literally around the corner in about 18 days from me recording this section, but it's going to be 2 weeks from now, probably from the posting of the video. I am very excited. Hope you guys are excited as well. I'm giving you guys literally 4 builds coming up. They're not really, they can be league starters, but I'm just making builds that I have made in Harvest League, and I've yet to make a post about it. And they're incredibly unique in their own way. So I doubt they'll get nerfed, and they'll most likely be used, you can be used as a league starter with exception of a few I'll try to mention in the video of those specifically. Oh, that guys, this build basically is a unique little snowflake trying to be, you know, be a hipster from the BV explosion that everybody keeps playing in Harvest, and most likely will continue to play in HEIST because it's just that good. You really don't need that much gear, even though you can scale it exponentially like always. But this build strays from the path. You know, it's a little bit of a hipster. It takes the fork in the path. I don't know whether you take the left or the right, but it takes the road less traveled. That's all I know. And it's a ton of fun. I had an envision to make cats shoot out missiles. Well, they're cats that are missiles that explode everything on the screen, and that was my goal, and I achieved the goal. And I'm very happy with how it came out because they killed everything in the game, albeit not the best. It did do its job, so I'm happy with that. For that, guys, I do stream on Twitch every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at 8:30 EST, whatever time zone that is for you. PM, not AM, by the way. For that, guys, also join my Discord down below if you guys have any questions with HEIST coming up. It's a great opportunity for you guys to join a community and you know, go at it all together and give each other some tips and maybe some build ideas, because I've been getting build ideas non-stop, so look out for those, and I'm excited to get right back at it with a new league expansion. But with that, guys, let's move on to the meat of it. Well, guys, from looking at the gameplay, you're probably wondering, how did I make this build work and what's it all about? Well, I had a plan that I wanted to shoot out cats that are technically missiles because they explode everything on the screen. And this whole mechanic basically came from the whole idea of using Herald of Ash and the Explode mod. But I'm not really going down that route because it's a lot, you know, it's a lot more cheaper to do what I did than to go down that route. Now, this came into popularity because of the BV build. Of course, Estro played it, and it's already been popular by Mathful and other streamers out there playing it all the while. And the whole notion of it is the chaining effect of Herald of Ash and the Explode mod. And what's up happening is that when you kill an enemy, you're guaranteed to explode them because the Explode mod on the chest piece guarantees an explosion. When that monster explodes, it does 3% of their maximum life, and usually monsters have a decent amount of maximum life to one-shot everything around them. And when they one-shot, more than likely just overkill damage. And overkill damage, what Herald of Ash works on, that overkill damage is then popped or applied as a damage over time effect to everything around them for the Herald of Ash as fire damage over time. And that can keep chaining because once the first one dies, right, applies a overkill damage over time effect from Herald of Ash to the surrounding enemies. That kills those enemies, and then it continues on, and it continues on, and it continues on. And since Herald of Ash kind of has a good look to it, especially if you have the MTX, I highly recommend Dragon Hunter if you have it, or Celestial. Dragon Hunter has a very juicy pop sound to it. So you're essentially making a build have insane and clear potential. And I have a perfect example of using this in a future upcoming build that is my favorite build of the league, and it's coming very soon, and is the last character I played in Harvest. And you're going to see this to an extreme degree, very easy to make, and probably way better than BV, and it's absolutely fun, and I love it to death. Maybe I do a challenge, start the next thing with the Golem build. There's nothing interesting. But this build kind of does it a different way. Now, you don't have to use the Explode chest in order to make this work. What I did instead is I went with Occultist and used Profane Bloom. Profane Bloom states that when an enemy's cursed, you have a 25% chance to make them explode, dealing chaos damage, about 25% of the maximum life. Which is great, except we have one issue. They have to be cursed, so they can't explode always, and it's not always 100% chance. Now, 25% chance is more than enough because the pack usually has over 10 enemies, and 1 out of 4 guaranteed to pop. If 1 pops, everything's gonna die. So that's not really an issue. It's the fact that they have to be cursed. So how do we get around this? And the reason is simple, and is that SOULREND actually has a on-hit effect. Or I won't say on-hit effect, but it has damage on its first hit, along with the damage over time. So when the cat hits an enemy, it does hit them, does cursing them if you have a curse on hit ring, which I do, which is easy to do, especially from Delve and initially Harvest. And upcoming, you can use Delve or whatever you want to do. So we use a Despair on curse ring because Despair increases damage over time and chaos damage. But there's also another little nuance problem. SOULREND, when it attacks, little cat hits the enemy, the damage over time is in an AoE around the cat. Everything around the cat is slowly dying a little bit over time. However, the only enemy that effectively gets hit and thus cursed is the enemy that comes into contact with the cat or the SOULREND's projectile. And that poses a problem because while we're killing 5-6 enemies or more with the AoE of the damage over time, only 1 or 2 enemies are getting hit by the projectile, since it does pierce through all of them, which is quite nice. And it's highly unreliable when you only have a 25% chance to explode. So what we can do to offset this is use the unspeakable gifts from the jewel clusters. They have only a 10% chance to explode, dealing 25%, so it's like a mini Profane Bloom. We stack 2 of these and now it's a 20% chance. What's amazing about these is they don't have to be cursed. So it's kind of like Profane Bloom without the prerequisite, excuse me. So not only does the initial hit from the SOULREND, everything that comes in contact with the cat or aka the SOULREND projectile gets cursed and does explode, anything that dies from the damage over time around the cat will also have a chance to explode, causing more explosions. And thus we make a much higher and basically 100% more reliable, I want to say 100% more, but it's 100% reliability in terms of the explosions that happen. And all you have to do now is just put in Herald of Ash. And yes, understand that Herald of Ash does not increase the damage of chaos damage. Chaos damage has the benefit that there's literally no auras other than really Malevolence, Zeltry, and maybe Summon Skitterbots and probably Discipline. Well, I still had more room, so I put Flesh and Stone and Herald of Ash just for fun, since I'm not really using Mind Over Matter, because we have more than 8,000 Energy Shield easily in a build like this. So I said, F it, put Herald of Ash for the juicy explosions and the aesthetics. And my, was that a glorious, glorious idea. And with that, guys, hope you guys find the build intriguing and maybe I caught your interest. Let's go into a quick little montage of all the endgame bosses so you can see how this build performs at the highest tier levels. And so you can see that it's actually very viable if you guys want to try it out yourself. God damn. Welcome back, guys, into my little build guide for my kitty missile build, as it is appropriately named for obvious reasons, as I already described before. And it's a level 90 Occultist. Now, I don't really play past level 90 because honestly it's not really needed for the majority of the things in the game, and this build did manage to kill everything at this level So with that, I think it was a good time to move on, as I already did have my fun and had more ideas that I wanted to just, you know, play around with. So that, guys, let's go into the skill tree very quickly. We are an Occultist, and the reason we do this is for Profane Bloom. And now the order you want to take is Profane Bloom, Void Beacon, then Withering Presence, and then lastly Val Bastion for the defense and all the insane regen you get from it. It's absolutely bonkers in terms of defense. Now you're probably wondering why I don't take Malediction. The reason behind this is because there's not a lot of curses that is really good damage wise, or chaos builds, really only being Despair, unfortunately. So any other curse honestly would just be a defensive curse like Tempt Chains and or Enfeeble maybe. Right now, the reason why I tell you to go Profane Bloom first is because when you first meet the lab will be in Act 3. And Act 3 is when you get SOULREND. And then also around Act 3, which is level 28, is when you get, well, not when you get, is when you can use a Mark of Submission ring around level 24, very close by. And there you have a cursed enemies with Socket Gem on hit. So you put in a Despair in there, and now your SOULREND, which you should link to LMP for clear, with, you know, Void Manipulation, which you get in Act 1, will then curse the enemy, thus proccing Profane Bloom. So now you have a really decent clear and nice pops while you level, and it's much better than dealing with Freezing Pulse and Blight in Act 1, which you get, which is honestly quite abysmal in comparison. Right, and that's why I highly recommend it. So try to pick up a Mark of Submission ring if you can. It's amazing for a build like this, which relies on the curse, until of course you can get your jewels, which will go in there very quickly. Now the rest of the build is obviously very simple. It's just spell damage, as much energy shield as possible, as we are a low life build to try to stack as much damage as possible. I'll go into the reason why. And of course the rest of it is just damage over time. Now we do pick up some aura nodes, as since we're also low life, we want to put a lot of auras, including the Herald of Ash for aesthetic purposes, and Flesh and Stone for the reason being that it gives you less damage taken from afar, and then you blind enemies that are close by. It's very nice, and if I can fit it, I can fit it. And now the real reason I did this is that way I can fit in my shield, my Leviathan for more damage, Zultry for more damage, and then Discipline for, of course, more HP. Right, so aura nodes like that come in very handy, especially with a little bit of aura effectiveness. Now you're probably wondering why I went low life, and the reason behind this is because chaos damage does not get a lot of damage, unfortunately. Fire and elemental builds tend to, you know, rely on elemental overload like Wintertide and Righteous Fire, and elemental equilibrium very easily just to, you know, increase their damage, while chaos damage doesn't have an equivalent for that. You know, Wintertide can get Pain Attunement for more damage, elemental equilibrium, and, you know, elemental overload on top of the curses and everything else, while chaos damage just has Despair for curse, which bosses of course have resistance against them anyway because they're a 1/3 effectiveness. And then other than that, maybe a minus chaos helmet, which is hard to get because it has to be a hunter helmet, and hunter is very expensive. And just stacking as much chaos damage multiplier. But again, that feels unfair because you can just do the same thing with cold damage and fire damage multi, just the same. There's just not enough more multi, so I decided to go low life to scale as much damage as possible. Another problem with that is we are cast while channel. The reason being is because SOULREND has insane a mana cost. If I were to take out cast while channel, right, and use my SOULREND, my mana cost is 75 on technically a 4 link, because the other link is really just a Blight. It's 75 mana cost on a 4 link. On a 6 link is just absolutely insane and not sustainable when it only lasts literally 0.6 seconds. So you constantly have to reapply it, and we don't have a lot of cast speed in order to just recasting SOULREND over and over again. Of course, we don't also have the mana regen because we lose some auras. I didn't want to do that, so you know what? I went with the more fun route, and I said, F it, we'll go cast while channel, because now my mana, instead of being like freaking over 150 or some, you know, stupid number, it's 11 now. My mana cost is literally 11. I can hold it forever, and it casts much faster if I were casting it myself, allowing you to reapply the cats over and over again very easily, right? So that comes in handy, but the problem with that, of course, is you lose gem sockets, because cast while channel only gives you 9% more, and you're using 2 spells in a 6 link, kind of similar to cast on crit. So to make up for it, I went low life, and that's basically the point of it. Everything else is generic chaos damage on the build, chaos damage, a little bit of spell damage over here. ES, make sure to pick up energy from within. That way you can convert these commonly converted nodes into just pure energy shield. One thing I did not do, and I highly recommend you to do, is Tempered Mind gives you mana recovery rate, and in this situation, if you were to upgrade it into Transcendent Mind, it gives you damage over time multiplier, which helps a lot too. And you get around maybe 8 to 10% from this one node, which is great. You know, honestly, it's better than, I think it's maybe even more than 10%. It's better than just getting a normal jewel socket. And as for your cluster jewels, what you're really looking for is unspeakable gifts. Get a chaos cluster jewel with eye level 75, so you can have the mod in the pool. And it's going to be very difficult because it's kind of a rare mod. Explode mods tend to be rare. So just alt spam until you get it. And honestly, don't worry about the other mod. You can regal it. If you hit something decent, good for you. If you don't worry about it, because honestly, it doesn't make that big of a difference at the end of the day. I got Touch of Cruelty, which is good, but you know, most of my enemies are not hindered until I put my Wither Totem down. And same thing for this side. I got 30% chaos damage, which is not going to kill me, honestly, if I drop it. As for your small, on this side, we just went with energy from Not, because each of these nodes gives you 500 energy shield, which is absolutely insane for just 2 points. And they're very, very cheap to craft. And you can put dexterity or whatever the else you want on it if, you know, you have the space for it. And this allows you to get easily 8,600 energy shield with minimal investment. And on this side, I decided to put medium cluster jewels because honestly, they're just amazing in terms of damage. It technically is our highest damage source of damage over time multiplier. I have Brush for Death for recovery on kill, and Exposure Therapy to get, you know, chaos resistance against damage over time, since low life's biggest weakness is chaos damage. On this side, this is kind of cool. I highly recommend you get a Curse medium cluster 5. Of course, you want 5 or 4 passives. It doesn't really matter because in the day you can just avoid that 5th passive if you get a 5 one. And you can get Culling Strike against cursed enemies. And SOULREND does hit, so it can cull. And it's also amazing for the explosion, because if the explosion from the chaos happens to, more likely than not, because it's 25% of their maximum life that it gets exploded, bring them down to 10%. If that hit brings the, you know, nearby enemies down to 10%, it will call those enemies and then make those enemies explode, thus increasing the chances of the chain of explosions. And now I don't think you really need it, but in terms of bossing, it helps a lot. Things for Cyrus, Shaper, you know, it helps that last 10%. It just feels nice. And it's easy to get, so I highly recommend it. The other one doesn't matter. I went with Despair because it was easy to do in Harvest, and you know, it gives you a little bit of skill effect duration, so nothing wrong with that. And then of course the small clusters again are just energy from Not for more energy shield. Now for your anointments that you want, your best obviously is going to be Tranquility. Otherwise than that, there's nothing really that compares to it, because it converts all the increased maximum energy shield, the scaling that we have on the tree, 30% of that as spell damage. And it happened to be the best damage per point per node, but it is quite expensive, sitting at 2 golds. So until then, you can put whatever you want, or maybe just energy shield, or even just, you know, stats if you need it. Even things like Arcanist Dominion for more spell damage, whatever floats your boat and is in your budget. And with that, guys, let's move into the build gear, obviously. Now for the wand, you basically use 1 damage over time, as much chaos damage over time multiplier as possible, plus 1 a chaos gem, ideally. You don't really need cast speed, honestly, that big of a deal, but it helps. And I do have a trigger wand here, for the reason being because I have a other spell, because chaos spells do stack with each other. You can do Blight, Bane, Essence Drain, Contagion. Don't do Contagion, it's bad. And SOULREND, you know, they all stack. They don't stack with each other, like on top of the same spell, but different spells do stack, which is quite nice. And here I put Essence Drain. Now it makes more sense to put Bane, because Bane is AoE. That way you're guaranteed to hit the enemy, as, you know, trying to hit an enemy with 1 projectile is kind of insane. We do have Dying Sun, which makes it 3 projectiles and helps a lot. Now, the only issue, I mean, I won't say the only issue, the reason why I do have Essence Drain, even though I kind of miss a lot, is because it gives you 0.50% of debuff damage, which is a damage over time damage, leech as life. When you have Zealot Sofa over here, that becomes Energy Shield Leech, which then stacks with the, you know, all the Energy Shield regen you get from Vile Bastion. And now when you hit the enemy, it gives an insane amount of quick regen, talking like another additional 600. So you probably be like 1,200 or more regen when your Essence Drain hits. So with all the recharge and everything, you're pretty freaking tanky in a build like this. So I highly recommend it, and I put damage sources just in case it does hit to get more damage. Right, that's your wand. For your shield, obviously Prism Guardian. It is the best source for low life builds, honestly, because you can fit in a lot of auras. The reason being because Blood Magic Gem has a mana multiplier, making your auras cost more, but on the shield it doesn't, so it costs the same as it would normally. And on top of that, reduces it so you can put more auras, and it gives you a bit of dexterity and a lot of red, so it's a solid shield, honestly. And here I put Zeltry, Discipline, and Malevolence all on my life pool, and it brings you down to low life. And with that, you have Pain Attunement viability. Now for your helmet, use one as much energy shields as possible. If you can afford it, obviously get a SOULREND, deals 30% increased damage. It's probably not that expensive because SOULREND is not that popular due to the fact that it's hard to scale. unless you do like super end, like mirror tier +1 everywhere. It's kind of crazy. But if you can, I highly recommend getting a hunter helmet so you can get -9 to nearby enemies for their chaos res. On top of that, you can craft light radius based on energy shield instead of life. It costs like 4 chaos on the helmet, I believe. You go to light radius, 4 chaos, right? And it is indeed a suffix. So if you have an open suffix, I highly recommend it. It saves you point on the tree. But of course you can avoid it if you don't really care for light radius. Now on the helmet, I do have an arcane surge, second wind, flame dash, and righteous fire. It's a Vol righteous fire just for damage sources because damage is the thing you have to fix in the build. And flame dash just gives you more damage, cast speed, mana regeneration with arcane surge on cast. And make sure the mana cost requirement for the arcane surge is less or the same as flame dash. In this scenario, I had it level 7, flame dash level 19, right? Just so you know. Moving on to your boots, you just want energy shield int if you can, because it does increase energy shield, but it's never a necessity. Resistances and movement speed. Here I have faster casting, wither, spell totem, multiple totem. Here is basically my wither totem, and this makes you do more damage. Obviously you want that. It's a staple in every chaos build. For your gloves, this is probably my most expensive piece. You're looking for basically high energy shield resistances. You want fingerless silk gloves if you can afford it, because it gives you spell damage and does affect damage over time. And if you want to go balls deep, honestly, outside of harvest, I wouldn't recommend it. It costs a lot of money. You can get a hunter glove with chaos damage over time multiplier. It's only 9%, honestly, so it's not that big of a deal. I didn't even get tier 1. I just did it for the fun of it. And I believe I crafted this after I finished the build. I didn't even use this in the majority of the gameplay. So honestly, don't even bother. Here is where we have some auras. We have the rest of the auras. Herald of Ash. Yes, it's just aesthetic purposes, but it fits nicely. As you guys can see here, I can sustain mana easily. Flexion Stone for, if you're in sand stands, nearby enemies are blinded, and you take less damage from enemies that aren't in the sand stance aura, which is this little circle over here, which is absolutely amazing. Highly recommend it. Only costs 10% of your mana. Actually 25. Surprisingly, it fits, right, with all the aura nodes. Enlighten level 3, and then summon skitter bots because it makes them shock, take 15% increased damage on the shock, and chill them to slow them down even further. Quite nice. So I highly recommend that. And for your chest piece, of course, shabs, because we are low life. You have to buy one. Again, early on, try to cap one in the beginning of HEIST. How am I saying? HEIST. They'll be fairly cheap, honestly. You can get it day 1. They're going to be expensive, obviously, but they're not going to be as expensive in like the first month. And then they'll drop down again towards later of the month. But if you want one quick, highly recommend it. Just chase after it if you want to play a build like this, or any low life build in particular. Chase after that shabs like you're just gunning for it, so you can buy it at the lower price. Here I have Blight, Vol Blight, actually, because Vol Blight makes him deal, it has a little wave, and it makes him deal more, take more damage, chaos damage, obviously. Vol Blight, and looks very nice as a celestial effect. GMP for SOULREND, and Vol Manipulation for single target, right? With that, then we have Castle Channel, Efficacy, SOULREND, and then Control Destruction. Very nice. Now again, you can try dropping everything. Maybe you don't care about the aesthetics, you can drop the Herald of Ash, drop the Flesh and Stone, and see if you can run a 6-link SOULREND. Good luck with that. Honestly, I didn't enjoy it that much because it felt really bad for mapping with a very slow amount of cast speed that SOULREND has, honestly, because it has a 0.8 cast time. So up to you, but this is more than enough and it kills everything in the game. And now for your belt, honestly, if you're playing in Harvest, this is really easily. Just buy a Shaper belt, and then you cast her twice, and you're guaranteed cast speed and spell damage 100% of the time. It's that easy, but not really necessary. I just did it because it was that easy. Just get a ES build belt with some whatever res you need, and then you can craft damage for like a few CE from the belt, the bench. And what else you want? Honestly, you can also do a Crusader belt with increased max energy shield, whatever floats your belt. And in my jewel, I just have, honestly, just Onslaught and ES. I didn't care. I had some accuracy there. Honestly, this can be damage over time, whatever you want it to be. I used to have Onslaught here just to make it more consistent with my Onslaught Flask. But honestly, it's not necessary. I used to have it for energy shield. Right. You can even put Blind, honestly, because I think Blind's only attacks. So unfortunately, you can't do that because that doesn't affect... I believe you can do Hinder, maybe, or I don't know if it's Hinder or some other one that slows down movement speed. And you can put that on hit for spells. So you can try that one out if you want. And it helps out quite a bit. Especially if you do have the cluster jewel up here that has Hinder, Touch of Cruelty. They take 10% damage. 10% increased damage if they're hindered. Which is quite nice. Right, that pretty much covers that portion. Let's go into our jewelry. We needed strength, so I went with strength, and you just went energy shield. I went with a lot of mana regen. You're gonna see these rings have a lot of mana regen. You don't need it if you go Castle Channel. Honestly, I have way too much mana regen to overkill. I did it only to sustain SOULREND, and even with this insane amount of mana regen, I have over 100% on just my rings alone. It still wasn't enough, so keep that in mind. You don't really need the mana regen, guys, understandably. So don't try to do what I do with that. Just get ES, strength, whatever res you need, and then craft some damage if you can. The other ring, same exact thing, but you need a curse on hit ring, so make one of these rings a curse on hit ring. If you're doing harvest, if you have only open suffixes, if you aug chaos, you can either get resistances, but you can block it. So if you have 2 open suffixes, craft chaos res. I believe that is a mod from the Veil. Right here, and I'm pretty sure it blocks it. I'm 100% sure. You can test it. You can craft this and try to aug the Chaos Eve if you get Despair. But if you don't, if you do get Chaos Res, then you can just aug again and you're guaranteed to get the Despair on hit. Otherwise, if you're playing outside of Harvest, just get it from Delve or just buy it on the market. Just get a cheap one. All you want is energy shield, curse on hit, whatever damage if you can, resistances if you need it. And then somewhere of an open suffix, you want to craft Aspect of the Spider. Because again, yes, I can fit that into the build as well. We're using a lot of auras. We're literally using Zeltry, Arrow of the Vash, Fleshing Stone, Malevolence, Summon Skitter Bots, Aspect of the Spider for more damage taken and less movement speed, and Discipline. Quite nice. Make sure you have a Vol Discipline, so it's kind of like a Flask for an ES build. And with between Vol Blight and Vol Righteous Fire, it's good for more damage against, tanky subjects, more like bosses, honestly. Ignore that, honestly. Now, with that out of the way, your amulet, you really want a Present Chayula. Some guys trying to buy some gloves there for an Exalt. I'm not gonna even bother with that, honestly, in the league. Present Chayula gives you a massive amount of energy shield. I kind of want to take it off to show you guys, but I think it might break the entire build. I'm not quite sure, but it makes 24% or 20% of your maximum life converted to energy shield, which is insane because you bought over 1,000 energy shield, and if you put defense catalyst on it, it goes up to 24%. So I highly recommend it. And onto our flask, Quicksilver Flask, so you can zoom. A Sulfur Flask for just more damage, honestly. And since we have Zlatov, we do get a little bit of ES regen. Rumi's Concoction for block. There's not a lot of flasks you can use, guys. I'm just trying my best here. We are using a shield, so block is quite nice, and we're immune to stun from the Chayula. Onslaught for just speed, and then make sure you have immunity to freeze and bleed, and then a Dying Sun. Again, you don't really need a Dying Sun. It's just there for AoE and just for more fun. This is honestly, what else are you going to use? You can't use any other flask. You can try using a Witchfire Brew, but since we have Curse on hit anyway from a ring, it kind of ruins the purpose of a Witchfire Brew, but you can put it in for a little bit more damage. I don't recommend it, honestly. And that pretty much covers that in terms of the flask and everything. For your Pantheon, I just went with Soul of Sonaris just for a little bit more movement speed. You can go Solar Kali, take reduced damage overtaken. Honestly, it doesn't really matter. Don't get this one because you're immune to stun once you have Present Chayula. And for this, I have increased movement speed again because honestly, I didn't really need it. I think my Chaos Res is pretty high. Yeah, my Chaos Res in this build is actually bonkers. It's 60%. So that's why I didn't go any damage over time, things like that. And of course, because of the jewel socket, the cluster jewel, I'm like 90% against damage over time. Reason being because there's a lot of Chaos Res on the tree, and especially with some nodes here and there have Chaos Res. And I believe I do have some Chaos Res on my gear. I'm not quite sure where. It doesn't seem like I do. So I don't know where I'm getting all this Chaos Res from, but I'm pretty sure it's from somewhere. So I have a lot of Chaos Res, so that's why I didn't bother, getting those damage over time. But if you don't have a lot of Chaos Res, then for your Pantheon, recommend Arakali and Shikari. And as for your Bandit of choice, I believe just kill all. Since we're not critting anymore, there's no point in picking a Lyra, and the rest are just straight up garbage. So just kill all of them and get the 2 skill points. And as for your NTX, for people who are curious, I'm using Transcendence Dagger. Let me zoom in real quick. Right. Sentinel sets with the Delirium Horns, which are absolutely beautiful. Celestial Shield, the Celestial Character Effect, a lot of Celestial stuff. Pet, if your character is a Black Dragon, obviously. Black Footprints, black on black on black. And we have Celestial Weapon Effect for the Dagger. Celestial Blight, Celestial Cat SOULREND, that's the cat. There is another one called Celestial SOULREND, which is, it's kind of very pretty as well. I kind of like it a lot more, but Kitty Missile sounds better. But honestly, visually, I like this one a lot more. Right? I have Celestial Essence Drain, Celestial Aura Effect, Black Aura Effect, Trinity Aura Effect, Black Flame Dash. Nothing for Righteous Fire. I need to get one, but it blocks the ground. I don't like it. Dragon Hunter Herald Effect gives you the best and most beautiful pops, in my opinion, in terms of build like this. Celestial Blood and Sand, Void Emperor, Summon Skitter Bots, Arcane Totem, and then Celestial Wither. A lot of Celestial MTX. I basically just checked this build out with Celestial. And that pretty much covers it, guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Let's move out to the outro, and I'll catch you guys there. And with that, guys, that pretty much wraps up the entire Kitty Cat Missile build. Hope you guys enjoyed what you saw. Please make sure to stick around towards the end of the video, because I do have a sneak peek up to the next build guide is going to come up, and 2 more following up to the Heist launch. And there I'll give you guys my league starters that I highly recommend, that are tried and perfected to last you from the beginning of playing all the way to killing all the bosses at the end of the game, with decent investments and, of course, very little at the start. It should treat you very well, so I'm very excited for that, as Heist is basically right around the corner in about 2 weeks. So please like the video if you guys enjoyed what you saw. It'll help me a ton for the YouTube algorithm, and subscribe if you want to see more content like this in the future, which you should be watching you. And with that, guys, I'll catch you guys in the next video and the next build guide. So enjoy Heist and have a good one. See you guys later.
Here we go.